My name's Ivan Verdin, and I'm gonna be presenting HIV virus with Carlos Covarrubias and Mark Coronel, Group 8. What is HIV? HIV stands for Human Immunodeficiency Virus. HIV was first identified in 1981. HIV is considered to be the cause of one of humanity's deadliest and most persistent epidemics. This virus makes an individual vulnerable to other infections and disease because the virus attacks cells that help the body fight infections. That's what the picture at the right corner says. And it also says that there's no cure, but it is treatable with medicine. The HIV virus can be spread when exposed to certain body fluids of a person with HIV. This is more common during unprotected sex or through shared needles. HIV can lead to the disease AIDS if left untreated. There is no effective cure for HIV, and the human body cannot get rid of HIV. HIV brief history. In 1981, HIV was first recognized. In 1982, a group of cases among gay men in Southern California suggested that the cause of immunodeficiency was a sexual syndrome. It was initially called gay-related immune deficiency, or GRID. In September, the CDC used the term AIDS. In 1983, the CDC identified all routes of transmission and ruled out transmission by casual contact, food, water, and air. In 1987, the FDA approved the first antiretroviral drug, ceftibuten, AZT, as treatment for HIV. In 1994, the U.S. Public Health Services recommended the use of AZT to prevent the mother-to-child transmission of HIV, and that was a great advance because a lot of children were born with HIV because of that reason during birth. In 1999, the WHO announced that AIDS was the fourth biggest cause of death worldwide and the number one killer in Africa. It estimated that 33 million people were living with HIV and 14 million had died from AIDS since the start of the epidemic. In 2017, for the first time ever, more than half of the global population living with HIV are receiving antiretroviral treatment, a record of 19.5 million people. How does HIV affect the human body? Human immunodeficiency virus, also known as HIV, is a virus that attacks the body's immune system. The immune system is what fights infections and disease in a human body. HIV destroys CD4 cells. These cells are critical to your immune system. Over time, HIV weakens and destroys a person's immune system. Therefore, people who have HIV experience a very difficult time fighting disease and infections.
So for the structure of HIV, HIV is composed of 2 strands of RNA, 15 types of viral proteins, and a few proteins from the last host cell it infected, all surrounded by a lipid bilayer membrane. Together, these molecules allow the virus to infect cells of the immune system and force them to build new copies of the virus. Each molecule in the virus plays a role in this process, from the first steps of viral attachment to the final process of budding. The HIV genome encodes a small number of viral proteins, invariably establishing a cooperative associations among HIV proteins and between HIV and host proteins to invade host cells and hijack their internal machineries. In the search of the causative agent, it was initially believed that the virus was a form of the human T-cell leukemia virus HTLV, which was known at the time to affect the human immune system and causes certain leukemias. However, researchers at the Pasteur Institute in Paris isolated a previous unknown and a genetically distinct retrovirus in patients with AIDS, which was later named HIV. Each viron or virion composes a viral envelope and associated matrix enclosing a capsid, which itself encloses 2 copies of the single-stranded RNA genome and several enzymes. For the pictures, you could see the structure of the HIV. There's another picture that describes the HIV more in depth later in the presentation. Continuing for the structure of HIV, viruses are simple structures that have a sortish characteristics of cells. A virus does not have a nucleus, organelles, ribosomes, a cell membrane, or even cytoplasm. Only a few types of viruses contain enzymes. All viruses, however, the following 2 features in common: genetic information. Genetic information is all viruses contain genetic material, either RNA or DNA, that carries the recipes for the proteins. The protein coat. A protein coat surrounds the viral genetic material. The protein coat shape determines a virus's overall form. Many viruses are fical, icosahedral. Don't really know how to pronounce that. Basically what it is, it's a 20-faced shape built of triangular sections. Others are rod-shaped, oval, and filamentalis. A virus is smaller than a cell. Some have a envelope, a lipid and protein-rich outlayer derived from the host cell membrane. Proteins embedded in the envelope help the virus invade a new host cell. One example of an enveloped virus in the human immunodeficiency virus, which is known as HIV, which causes an acquired immunodeficiency syndrome, which is also known as AIDS. The 5 stages of viral replication. It first goes to attachment. Basically, what attachment is when a host cell is entering or puts itself to the host cell, and it's going to be ready to penetrate the host cell, which is also be known as the human cell. So once it penetrates, it lets out the so basically the viruses that it penetrates, it starts to go through the synthesis. In synthesis, the host cell produces multiple copies of the viral genome. So basically, it lets out its viral genome, its DNA, into the cell through synthesis. Synthesis is also where it goes through where it replicates and produces the proteins, and where it synthesizes itself and replicates itself. During assembly, assembly is basically where it gets all its material and its genetic information, and then it all joins together, creating a virus. In release, the virus then releases itself from the cell where it was taking process, where it was made, and then once it releases, then it goes into a new cell, and then that's where it recreates the process.
Transcription and translation of the HIV virus. Transcription. First, in transcription, a cell rewrites a gene's DNA sequence to a complementary RNA molecule. Translation. In translation, the information in RNA is used to assemble a different class of molecule. A protein, just as an interpreter translates one language into another. The infecting RNA produces messenger RNA, mRNA. This is translation of the genome into protein products. For others with negative stranded RNA and tRNA, viruses are produced by transcription and translation. The mRNA is used to instruct the host cell to make viruses components. And the picture demonstrates a HIV virus in the blood.
So describing the picture, as at the top you could see a virus. You could see its viral DNA inside, and then as well where the little purple dots are at, that's its protein coat. So that's the virus. On number 1 for attachment, it's basically where it goes to a receptor, and then it kind of like combines its, well, not combined, but like that's what, or attaches itself to the cell. For number 2, which is penetration, that's where the DNA, which is the viral nucleic acid, is released into the host cell. That's where it goes on to number 3, which is synthesis, is basically where it replicates itself, its DNA. And during that process, that's where it goes through transcription, and then later on it goes to translation. After that, to number 4, which is its assembly. New viruses are assembled. Basically, it's where it just gets, again, where it gets all of its genetic and material information, and then it creates a new virus. Once it is ready and matured and stuff like that, that's where it goes to number 5, which is the release, where it leaves the host cell to start the process all over again in another cell.
Retrovirus and type of HIV retrovirus. HIV is another virus that can remain latent inside of a human cell. HIV belongs inside of the family virus called retroviruses, all of which have an RNA genome. Transmission. Ways HIV can be transmitted. 1. Through sexual intercourse, such as anal, vaginal, and oral sex. 2. Using drug injection equipment, such as needles and syringes, etc. 3. Mother to child. Parental transmission is the most common way a child can get HIV. HIV is not transmitted through air or water, saliva, sweat, or tears, or closed mouth kissing, and insects or pets, share toilets, or food or drinks. Prevention. Get tested. Take medication for people at higher risk. Avoid sexual intercourse. Otherwise, use condoms. Contraceptive methods such as birth control do not prevent HIV. Another helpful tip is to limit your number of sexual partners, not share needles, and to get vaccinated. Treatment. HIV medications to prevent transmission. There is no cure for HIV. The medications above give a definition of what they do, such as this one, abbreviated ART. It works by stopping the virus replicating in the body, allowing the immune system to repair itself and avoid further damage. The medication prescribed to treat HIV differs on the person, and therefore each prescribed medication is individual to that person.